business. It is your job to be the one to de-risk your business. We have this thought pattern where we believe that the investor should see the vision of what we are trying to build. The investor should understand the magnanimity or understand the urgency of the problem that we need to solve, and because of that, the investor should then say, okay, because what you are trying to do is super important, that investor should automatically allow us thrive, or let me see, the investor should allow us thrive. But the unfortunate reality is that the growth of or the risk within our business, only us can de-risk it. And when you do not de-risk the risk in your business, an investor cannot come in. Hi, Legit, good morning. So it is my job to de-risk my business. It is my job to de-risk my business. It is my job to de-risk my business. So, having said that, we started our whole conversation yesterday where we said map out, understand some of the issues, and around key man risk, understand. Yesterday I took time to explain that you need to know, map out to identify where the risks are in your business. I said that yesterday. You need to know where the risks are in your business. I said that yesterday. Once you have identified the key man risk, I said the next thing is to find out what are the interdependencies. We say that because I said some risks are not standalone. They depend on each other. Then I said quantify that risk in form of the financial obligation. What does that risk cost your company financially? I said once you've been able to figure out what that risk costs you financially, that would then be a basis for you to test and benchmark so that you are able to figure out what you need to solve. I have a whole video on that. Now today we want to look at how to build resilience. Because you would always hear people say, you must make your business resilient. Resilience is not just a term. Resilience is not just the whole, what's the word I'm looking for now? It's not just stubbornness not to give up. It's not just being patient and all of that. It's a strategy. So in trying to build resilience, we will look at like 5 or 6 things that you need to go through to build resilience for your business. As a farmer, you need to have resilience strategy. Because you see, the problem many a time is a lot of us tend to see farming as seasonal. We tend to see farming from one cycle to another, which is what has affected us greatly in our businesses, because you are judging your success or failure based on a single cycle. But the reality is where you are is like a marathon. Which means it's not about what happens in a single cycle as much as what needs to happen in the long term. So the first thing that you need to work on in trying to build resilience is what we call talent redundancy. Now, what does this mean in simple terms? Many a time, as a business owner, it is easy for you to know who is that staff that is efficient, who is that staff that is dependable, including yourself. You are able to say, when it comes to marketing, I will send Lagbaja. When it comes to production, I will send Logbojo. When it comes to this, you are able to identify key persons in your system that are very efficient, that are dependable, that are productive. You are able to identify them. But you see, the problem is you have not taken intentional step to start documenting their thought process, to start documenting their work process, so that you can start duplicating them gradually. Like, how are you doing? So that you can start duplicating them. Because you see, the fact that you have one person that is talented, that is giving you results, that is getting you accolades and all of that, that becomes a huge risk for your business. Because it means that that person in your business has elevated your game. That person in your business has improved your system. That person in your company has improved your productivity. As a matter of fact, maybe that person in your company has now become the face of the job, that your clients are happy to work with you because of them. But if you don't start quickly thinking of how do I document what makes them them, how do I start multiplying this person quickly, it means that when they leave, a big hole will be created. Once they leave, a big hole will be created. So the goal in talent redundancy first is to I start identifying who are the people I need to start training. Who are the people I need to start training that will help me multiply? Now, I want to explain this in a way that you understand. It is even possible that the person that is very good in their role does not even know how to document what makes them good. It is possible. And if in your business you identify and realize, this agronomist or this salesperson or this marketer or this fertigation expert is so good, but I don't even know, or this laborer, self even be a laborer, is so good, but I do not know how to help them make sure they multiply themselves, or I do not know how to put in a system in place that allows me to multiply them. In that case, you need to now look for what we call a functional expert in that field. A functional expert in that field. You are going to hire the person on a short-term contract. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, and because why do we call them functional experts? Which means when it comes to performing that role, they are experts. But you are not bringing them in for the purpose of being in your system long term. No, rather you are bringing them in for the purpose of creating an SOP based on their expertise, one, and the performance system that staff that you like their modes of working, you want them to use that person yardstick, but bring it into a professional format. If I'm making any sense. So that at the end of the day, what then happens is you have an SOP that is professional, but based on the staff method of working that you have loved and appreciated, it is tailored to mimic the personality, in quote, of that person. So it becomes a professional document that breathes the culture of the company that you want to see. Because if you just tell the functional experts to write based on their expertise, the soul of the document will carry the personality of the expert or reflect the training of the expert, and that could cause a cultural shock or shift within your system. Reason being that it will not look like what you have been building. I am saying this from experience. Where, oh, in the past, you go and bring in an expert. Somebody say something. Doctor, good morning. Hope you're good. Yes, I don't know. Maybe I didn't put this light, so I was looking inside. Okay. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. So, what I'm trying to explain, I hope somebody understands. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. Hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So, it is not us just trying to get a professional to help us write our system, Daniel, but we want to ensure that what that professional is writing reflects our culture still. Because, like I said, I've been there before, where you are trying to make SOPs and all of that, and you just go and get an expert, and you tell the expert, I want you to develop a this. By the time the expert is done developing the whole process, it does not look like you. It feels like this thing is trying to break the processes that you like. So you are even trying to implement, the company starts to struggle. So what I then realized was, oh, when I bring in an expert to just write as an expert, the problem is the expert writes to fit their experience and their personality. But if I have a person within my system that represents what I want to look like, what I want the company to look like as we begin to grow, that expert that I hired for 3 months or 6 months builds in the image of that person, writes in the image of that person. That is number one. Number two is process documentation. And I've said this before, but just to recap, process documentation. The process documentation is what I had explained, where you start documenting step by step. At times, what we do when you don't have money for an expert is to bring on somebody to do what we call shadow working. So you bring in an intern. That's one of the cheapest way to get it done. You get an intern. Then you tell that intern, I am hiring you to shadow work. So you find an intern that is truly intelligent, that is smart, that is brilliant. Yes, the person is a university student, but the person is sharp. You now tell the intern, okay, what I want you to do is for the next 1 month, for the next 2 months, you have 6 months internship. For the next, maybe they spent 1 month before you realize, okay, this person is smart. For the next 2 months, work with Oga every day, document what Oga does. Document what the agronomist does. Document every major process. Be writing it down. The intern keeps writing. You will get to a point after maybe 3 months, you will notice that even the intern will notice there is a pattern in the work. There is a pattern in how the person operates. There is a pattern in how the person works. Once you have identified that pattern is your SOP. Once you have identified the pattern, that pattern becomes your SOP. So that way you are able to document your SOP. So by the time the SOP is documented, you can now sit down with the Oga himself that they were shadowing, that will remove all the nuances in the document. What are the nuances? Maybe anytime the Oga gets to the office, the first thing he does is pray. So in trying to develop your SOP, praying may not have to be there. So you're like, okay, remove prayer. Somebody's asking a question. Higher functional expert to obscure your theme to identify and strengthen their abilities to every. Yes, Creative Lumia. Thank you for that perfect summary. So you now start developing your SOPs, because in the future, when your company begins to grow, you may not be there to train everybody, but it is those SOPs that makes you resilient. Two, the fact that you have been able to study somebody that was productive in your system, to use their methodology to design your SOP, It means that if tomorrow they leave, somebody else can come in, use that document to replicate their results. Somebody else can come in as a hire, use that document to replicate their results, because an SOP has now been designed. Am I making any sense? So that what then happens is because when we talk about building systems and not depending on people, this is what we mean as a business. You notice that we started first by identifying the key people. We identified the key people. We knew they had the strength, they had the work ethics, the work pattern, the results that we want in our company. But we gradually started looking at how these people work to gradually ensure that we are able to document their processes. So, in documenting their processes, we take this functional role from people to documents, from individuals to system. We take the functional roles from people to documents, from I felt like doing it to this is the pattern of doing it. Let me look for another way to explain that. It's like somebody that is trying to open a restaurant as a chef. It is possible that you hire the lady to start cooking for you as one of your cooks. And when that lady joined your team, your food taste went wow. But you see, the issue is that lady that is a good cook is a person within your company. The day that lady leaves, a lacuna will be created. The day that lady leaves, the review from customers will be bad. That's what I'm trying to explain. Which means that person that has elevated your game as a restaurant has also become the biggest risk for your restaurant or your restaurant. Why have they become the biggest risk? The day they leave, the customer will notice a difference. And as a smart business owner, you want to quickly ensure that that does not happen. And the way to ensure that does not happen is you either get the person to document by themselves their process. Not everybody that is a good performer knows how to document. It happens. It's not that they are being wicked. If they do not know how to document, option number 2, I said, you find a functional expert. Find somebody that is, there's a name they call them, they are not professional chefs, but they help in writing SOPs around the food system, around catering and all of that. You get somebody like that to join your system for like 3-4 months. But their only role, hi brother, good morning. Hey, good morning bro, how you doing? Their only role is to watch how that person works and start documenting step by step. Document it. Why did you get a functional expert? This person is also very good and knowledgeable at cooking. But you want the document to reveal the personality of your staff. Oh, thank you, Mark. You want the document to reveal the personality of your staff, not the personality of the functional expert. Then I said, if for any reason you don't have money, you don't have enough funds to say, oh, I want to hire a functional expert, it is still fine. If you cannot hire a functional expert, the third method is look for an intern that is smart. Look for an intern that is very knowledgeable. Now, let that intern shadow the person that you want them to study, and they start documenting the processes. Good morning, precious shine. They start documenting the processes. They are documenting, so that at the end of the day, what you now have is this. You have your chef that is very good, but you have taken the brilliance, the essence, the methodology of the chef from being a personal thing to being a documented thing. To being a documented thing. So you are no longer just dealing with a person, you are not dealing with a system. Meaning, maybe there are days the chef will put Maggi first before salt. On other days, they put the salt before the MSG. On other days, they put oil before MSG. But by the time you are now creating document, you are now able to say, okay, let us test. Lagbaja, today, let's put the salt before MSG. How did the taste come out? What was the review? The other day, let's put the MSG before the salt. Oh, the review came out that one is better than the other. You now say, okay, in our document, how we now do it is, we must put this before this. You see, that's what the document now does. Such that, remember that it was a person's method you studied to write the document. But the document now becomes a guide even to the person. Which means at the end of the day, what you now have is a system, not just a people thing. I want you to see how we gradually move from persons to system, because it is systems that are built to be resilient, not people. Not people. What can break A may not break B. But what we build to be resilient is what? The systems. It is the systems that we build to become resilient. Now, number 3 is now what we call technology automation. Because when you hear people say, oh, how do you bring in technology into what you do? Hey, Runo Farm, good morning. How do you bring technology into what you do? How do you bring in technology? How do I add technology? How do I bring in automation? How do I use AI? You cannot correctly use technology to automate people. I will say that again. You cannot correctly use technology to automate people. What you are going to have is people are going to resist or abuse. Why is it that every time in Nigeria you want to automate civil service, the civil servant fight it back? Because many a time, many a time, the people who are in charge of trying to automate have not first built a system. It is systems that we automate. It is systems that we automate. On TikTok, you can share to bring others on board. It is systems that we automate. And how do we know what to automate in systems? Because you have written an SOP, it is now easy for you to look at routines. You look at routines, you look at points of high inefficiencies, areas where inefficiencies can happen easily. Those are the things you start looking at. Those are the things you start looking at. Where can we have high inefficiencies? Where can things go wrong easily? Those are the places you automate. Thank you for sharing. Please share with others. Those are the places we automate. I am a farmer, for example. As we look at towards next year as a farm, we already know the areas we want to automate. Because the areas we want to automate are those areas for us that what's the word I'm looking for now? The activities are repetitive. Number 1, we automate repetitive activities. Let me give you an example for that to make sense. What is the criteria for making FAQ on website? FAQs, frequently asked questions. Or what do you think was the criteria they had to go through to know how to automate responses with network? what they call self-help services. That you will call it, we say, if you want to do this, press 1, you press 1. If you are trying to rectify this, press 2, you press. If you are trying to rectify this, press 3, you press 3. Reason is because they have now studied the system to the extent that they could see a repetitive pattern. They could see a repetitive pattern. And in seeing that repetitive pattern, it was not easy to say, okay, what do we need to do to remove these repetitions, to remove this monotonous activity? E.g., we are into processing. We make plantain chips for some people. And because we do plantain chips for people in large scale, we noticed that one of the things is for us to do plantain chips, we have to wake up and start cutting plantain. Now, the advantage of cutting plantain manually is there is communal living while we cut, right? But the issue is you cannot guarantee uniformity in the slicing of the plantain. I didn't get that. I'll come back and check, Mark. I may not be able to get uniformity. The day, even if I'm the one cutting, I'm cutting small. My phone rings. Who be that? I cut big. Maybe the cord that came in was an annoying cord. I cut the cut, they go with anger, the thing change size. So I got to notice, okay, this plantain cutting is repetitive, and the issue is this plantain cutting is also a place where we need high efficiency, because plantain chips needs to have uniformity. Plantain chips needs to have uniformity. So what did we start thinking of? How do I bring in technology into this space so that the cutting of the plantain is not dependent on the mood of the cutter? So we now have to go and get a plantain cutter. So when the technology comes in, those people that were the ones cutting do not feel offended, because they are carried along in the process of that technology change. I'm trying to give you an example of how we use technology. Another example is we are very big on making bean flour. But the biggest issue in trying to make bean flour is, washing of the beans. Washing of the beans, we know you come in the morning, we will soak the beans, you now sit down and be doing like that, which is a lot of work, a lot of hassle, a lot of trouble, a lot of back and forth, a lot of wear and tear. So we say, okay, this process is, repetitive. What can I do to remove this repetitiveness? So it was not an area of high risk, but rather an area of repetition that could wear us out. So we got a machine that could peel beans. A machine that could peel beans. You see, what does that mean in essence? Because I have gotten a machine that can peel beans, even if there is a disruption in the ecosystem, the people may leave, but the system is now being built on machines. You see how we change things gradually. Remember, we started with people. We took the people to become a document. We turned the document into a system. Now, we are trying to make that system to depend on machines. Now, making that system to depend on machines automatically means that gradually we are moving our system from being people dependent to being machine dependent. You have the money, you can bring in, thank you for the gift, Peter Uwagdiegbu. Gradually, you can make it move from just being machine dependent to automating the machines. To automating the machines. And because your business is now moving from being people to being machine dependent, you now see that gradually you are building resilience into your company. Do you see the way resilience is built? You are building resilience into your company. One of my guys would always say that anybody that the day you realize that you have a repetitive work, know that your job is already at risk. It is just because you have a CEO or a team that has not figured out how to get machines to do the repetitive work. The day they are able to understand how to get machines to build that repetitive work, your job is gone, but the company becomes resilient. The company becomes resilient. Because a lot of us are trying to build big dreams, but we are not thinking of the resilience part of it. We are not thinking of the resilience part of it. So we use tech automation to gradually start removing. Let me give you an example. As a business right now, we are looking gradually into automating our admin. Gradually. That it will get to a point that when you call our admin line, hello, what you will talk to all through will be AI bot, not a human being. And the AI bot will answer you well, direct you well. You send an email, it will redirect, because we are doing a study gradually, doing what we call machine learning. Because it is machine learning that precedes automation. Yes, creative. Let me read what somebody wrote. Identify key talent in your business. Create a methodology around their strength and skill set. This will help you keep your operational value when the talent is not there again. Exactly. Hire intent to learn from key talents to foster continuity in operations. Exactly. But beyond them fostering continuity in operations, I also said you need to get that person to document it, so that documentation becomes the SOP. And it is that documentation you will study over time to see the repetitive activities that will allow you automate the repetition, or allow you bring in technology for the repetitions. I hope that makes sense. E.g., if you go to where we fabricate greenhouses, for example, if you go to where greenhouse fabrications are done, what informed the kind of machines we have today for fabricating greenhouses? Because we realize that, there is a need to bend the greenhouse arc in a certain way. Manually, you will take hammer, it don't too bend, I must straighten them again. I go again, we don't bend them. At some point, somebody somewhere figured, if you always need to bend this thing, can we make a machine that bends? Technology. But there was a need to first understand how it is done manually. And this is why, let me digress a bit, this is why a lot of startups in Nigeria who start by building tech, especially apps for farmers, do not succeed. I will say that again. I'm sure you know a lot of young chaps. They say, what are you trying to do? I want to build an app that connects the farmers to the market. We want to cut off the middleman. Have you noticed most of those apps failed? Most of noticed. Majority of the apps fail. They spend a lot of money doing MVP, building the app, automating the app, doing gbogbo tigbo on the app, even give people to test the app for free. They get good review, but at the end of the day, the business fails. Why does it fail? You did not understand how this thing works manually. You just sat down in the comfort of your house and developed an app. And you figured once the app comes, everything would work. I can give you countless examples of people that have brought app into farming and the app failed woefully after raising money. Remember what I said earlier, that a lot of people assume that businesses fail simply because they don't have money. No. Resilience is the issue. Resilience at times is the issue. We had those ones that built up to say they want to do trading commodity. They failed. One of the successful ventures today in trading commodity is FX. But did you notice that FX did not start off by building an app? They started first by doing manual trading themselves for years before they moved on to build a website where people could trade. But you were the one clicking, they were the ones moving things manually first. Because you cannot just automate without understanding what needs to go on behind the scene. Somebody might be thinking, but today, somebody can just build an app around finances and open a fintech. Yes, you can do that today because there are a lot of documentation that has been done around fintech that you can build your app on and thrive. There are lots of documentations, but you do not have that leverage when it comes to agri that you can just build on and thrive. And because you do not have that in agri, it means that you still need to follow the manual route to understand it. So I don't take time. Number 4, legal and insurance. Legal and insurance. You need to, you remember we spoke yesterday about knowing the key men. You need to have an insurance policies around your key men. You need to have an insurance policy. The insurance policy includes things like how can they live. You have that staff that is very, very good. They cannot sign the usual contract that others are signing. But when you want to leave, give me 1 month notice. No. What is your insurance that protects you? There are those staff that you need to pay extra high, and you let them know that, okay, for you to leave, give us 6 months. Or one of the insurance policies I have with you is, if you need to leave, you cannot leave us and go to a competition. That's insurance policy for your company. Or if you are leaving our farm, we are going to pay you higher, but you cannot leave us and go to another farm in the next 2-3 years. You must leave the sector for 3 years before you join the sector again. Somebody may be thinking, is this guy high? I am telling you. That is an insurance policy. So that, because I can tell you this for free. I remember in our early days, we will go somewhere to do a job for somebody. Because we do so great a job, you will have those teams trying to hire my staff. You will have those teams trying to hire my team members, telling them how much is from Assam paying you. I will pay you ×2. I will pay you ×3. Why is it that Oga Mavi knows what Mavi? I don't know if Mavi Agric is still around. Oga Oyeni, I don't know if he's still alive. He can attest to that. I remember the days we went to as far as Saudi, Dubai, to go and set up farms for some people. And they were trying to poach my team members. What is your insurance policy against your members being poached? What is the legal backing that you have? What is your insurance policies? Because if not, you will just be there crying, they did this, and now the staff that I did this for. That is why you will notice in some organizations, they will tell you, if I train you, you must sign an agreement. Federal government does it. If federal government, universities a lot, federal universities does that a lot. If federal university, maybe you use, what's that thing called? Should sponsor your PhD or your course as a university lecturer. Have you noticed they will say, as part of the agreement, You were away from the school for 2 years to go and do your PhD abroad or whatever course abroad. You cannot resign in the next 5 years. What is government doing? Insurance policy. But it is not a thing said verbally. It is legally backed. It is legally backed. You need a farmland. There is land everywhere. Where are you, sir, that you need a farmland? It is legally backed. Study leave. Thank you, Oga Mark. Study leave. Yes, you can run pipe from our water system to wherever you are, sir. Yes, for the Ugu. It is legally backed. Because you see, many a time, a lot of people do not understand the place of legal in building farm resilience. I remember those days when we were still very small. I hired some interns, and the day I gave them their contract letter for internship, months later, by the time when they became close and they could gist with me, one of them said, for my son, hey, when did you give me the internship letter and I took it home? My parents were like, this is a place you need to work. Which kind internship be this? I think then my internship letter used to be 18 pages, 17 pages of agreement, rules and regulations written, and laws. Because your system needs to be legally protected. Because when I say insurance and legal, I am not just talking about taking insurance policy over your business. No. There are places you can get land without problem. That's why I asked, where is your location? Where is your location? You have to have insurance. Take, for instance, right now, discussing with anywhere in the West cannot be fine. Where is your own location? Right now, I'm discussing with our board, and one of the things we are trying to implement gradually from next year is rules and regulations around certain people. Go to the Baale of a village in that Oshogbo, go and speak to them that you need land. Buy land through royalty. If you buy land through the royal palace, the land will be secured, but it will be expensive because the palace is a palace. Go through that method. Now, back to what I was saying. One of the things we are trying to do next year, discussing with the board, is there are key people we are looking at that we are going to have an extra policy on. To say, for example, you cannot be on the road in the night except you are flying. The kind of hotel they can sleep at. You cannot stay in a 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star hotel for any reason. Number 3, we are going to hire more logistics team. Because of that, you can no longer drive yourself. What are we trying to do? To ensure they stay alive. To ensure they stay alive. That is why you will notice there are people, if you've had some of these big men visitors, there are things they will tell you we cannot do. They'll say, no, our company will not allow us to do this. Because there is an insurance and a so it's not just you saying you cannot do this, there is a legal implication if they break it. There is implication if they break it. I hope we've understood that. Finally, number 5, financial buffer. Financial buffer in building resilience. I said I want to take it not up to, we want to be done in an hour. Financial buffer. What is financial buffer? As a business, you need to have money saved. You need to start thinking of how to save money. Now, that money you are saving, don't leave it in your savings account. You can go and put it somewhere else. You can put it in a fixed deposit. You can put it in treasury bill. Okay, treasury bills, no, because you will not have access to it. Fixed deposit, anything you can put the money on, but should you need it, we call them short-term investment, you can bring it out back. Nothing makes you resilient like having money on your system. Having money for your system. I was listening to the story, or reading the story of, not Dangote, I'm trying to remember, what's their name? Is it Julius Berger? I think Julius Berger also, when they had issues last year. And in their document, they said that what saved them was they had investment in other things. So when their core construction was having issues, their investment in other things was what they rode on to navigate the wave. The number one problem your business is suffering from today is you don't have a financial buffer. All the money you have is being spent on the business. You need to start building your financial buffer so that should something happen, you have some money to jump on to come out of it. Build financial buffer. Have access to line of credit. Build your credit score so that you have access to line of credit should you need it tomorrow. I will continue this, I'm not sure when. We'll then look at scaling while ensuring resilience, how to scale. Thank you for joining and have a great day. Good morning. Maybe we should have started like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. so that I don't distract people that have to go to work. Good morning.